A pound of dried root costs $10 to $35. 1 pound lasts up to 227 days. That works out to cents per day. The supplement made from that same root sells for $600 a bottle, sometimes requiring a 4-bottle minimum to start. That's more than $2,000 up front. The plant is Astragalus membranaceus, called huangqi in Chinese medicine. It has been in the written medical record for 2,000 years. The molecule that makes it interesting was extracted, patented, and sold back. The markup was hundreds to thousands of %. To justify that price, they had to make you forget where the plant came from. The herb that outlasted empires. The story does not start in a California laboratory. It starts in China, sometime between the 2nd century BC and the 2nd century AD, when a medical text was compiled that would shape how an entire civilization approached health for the next 2,000 years. The text is called the Shenong Ben Cao Jing, the divine farmer's classic of materia medica. It is one of the oldest surviving works of Chinese medicine. It catalogued hundreds of plants across 3 tiers: inferior, middle, and superior. Superior herbs were those considered safe for long-term use. They were the herbs people took not to cure a specific illness, but to build the body from within. Astragalus was classified as a superior herb. The text described it as strengthening vitality and prolonging life. In a document that old, that classification was not a marketing claim. It was a consensus judgment passed down from generations of observation before anyone wrote it down. The practical instructions were specific. The dried root was sliced and decocted in water. That means simmered long enough to pull the active compounds into the liquid. Standard doses in traditional Chinese medicine ran 9 to 30 grams of crude root per day, depending on the condition being treated. Practitioners used it for fatigue, recurrent colds, spontaneous sweating, edema, and chronic sores that would not heal. These were not vague complaints. They were patterns the medicine had named, tracked, and treated with this root across hundreds of years of clinical use. The tradition did not stay frozen. By the 16th century, the physician Li Shizhen had produced the Bencao Gangmu. In the West, it is known as the Compendium of Materia Medica. It is one of the most exhaustive works of natural history ever written. Li Shizhen ranked huangqi as a top tonic herb. His text described it as reinforcing healthy qi, the body's foundational energy in Chinese medical thinking. It dispelled pathogenic factors, promoted diuresis, and aided wound healing. This was not a fringe opinion in a minor text. Li Shizhen's compendium became the reference standard for Chinese medicine for centuries afterward. His ranking of Astragalus carried institutional weight. By the 20th century, the herb had moved out of classical formulas and into modern Chinese and Korean hospital wards. Physicians were incorporating Astragalus into treatment protocols for chemotherapy-induced immune suppression. They used it in cardiovascular support formulas. This was not alternative practice happening in the margins. Chinese hospitals integrated the root into standard care, a practice that spread across East Asia. The root had gone from ancient text to modern ward without losing its place in either world. Then something changed. Not in China, where huangqi kept its place in hospital formularies and home kitchens without interruption. The change happened in a laboratory in California, in the early years of a new century, when a team of researchers was looking at something most people had never heard of: the biological clock built into every cell in the human body. That is where the price comes from, where the $600 bottle starts. The patent that changed the price. In the early 2000s, a California biotech company found what they believed was the key to a multi-billion-dollar anti-aging market. It was inside a $15 a pound soup herb from China. The company was Geron Corporation. Their researchers had been screening extracts from traditional Chinese medicinal plants. They were looking for molecules that could switch a specific enzyme on. They found one in Astragalus. It was a molecule called cycloastrogenol, drawn from a compound already present in the root. In lab settings, cycloastrogenol activated telomerase in human cells. To understand why that mattered, you need to know what telomerase does. Every chromosome in your body is capped at both ends by a protective sequence called a telomere. Think of it as the plastic tip on a shoelace. Every time a cell divides, those caps get slightly shorter. When they get short enough, the cell stops dividing. It dies, or it starts behaving erratically. That shortening process is one of the core mechanisms of biological aging. Telomerase is the enzyme that rebuilds those caps. In the early 1990s, researchers began to understand exactly how it worked. Telomere biology became one of the hottest research areas in science almost immediately. The logic was straightforward. Short telomeres connect to aging. Telomerase rebuilds them. Something that activates telomerase could slow or reverse that process. Academic labs, pharmaceutical companies, and biotech startups all moved toward the same question. Geron Corporation had their answer. It was a discovery that could have made the most expensive anti-aging treatments in the world obsolete overnight. But instead of releasing the discovery, they did something else. They filed a document that changed the price of this route forever. On June 23, 2003, Geron filed the patent application that would become US Patent 7,846,904. The patent's title was Compositions and Methods for Increasing Telomerase Activity. It was granted in 2010. What the patent covered was specific, certain compounds and specific methods of using those compounds to activate telomerase. The route itself was not patented. You could still grow it, buy it, boil it, and drink it. Nobody took that away. But the moment those compounds were identified and locked behind a patent, the game had changed. Research money, clinical attention, and the consumer narrative would all flow toward the patented version, not the route in the bulk bin. Geron then licensed the exclusive worldwide nutraceutical and cosmetic rights under that patent to a company called Telomerase Activation Sciences Incorporated, known as TA Sciences. TA Sciences was a New York supplement company. Its founder and chief executive officer was Noel Thomas Patton. Patton had been following telomere research for years and saw the commercial opening clearly. With Geron's patent behind him, he had something nobody else could sell, a legal claim to the first commercially available telomerase activator derived from a natural source. In 2007, TA Sciences launched TA65. The price was $600 per bottle. Some clinics that carried it required customers to buy 4 bottles to start. That is more than $2,000 before you take a single capsule. The marketing positioned TA65 not as a supplement, but as a biotechnology breakthrough. The language was precise and deliberate, federally patented, scientifically validated, the first product of its kind. Every word pointed away from the $15 per pound route it came from. What followed was a 4-step process that allowed the company to hide the herb without ever banning it. It is a strategy called enclosure. It ensures that even if you see the cheap version in a store, you will be convinced it does not work. Step 1 was the patent itself. Once specific compounds and methods were under intellectual property protection, serious research investment flowed toward the patented molecule. Scientists studying astragalus in a longevity context studied the patented extract. The whole route, with its full pharmacological complexity, became a secondary subject. Not because it was less interesting, because it had no commercial sponsor. Step 2 was framing displacement. The traditional Chinese medicine framework, qi tonification, immune support, and 2,000 years of clinical observation was stripped from the public narrative and replaced with biotech language. Telomere length became the story. The herb's history became irrelevant to the pitch. Consumers searching for anti-aging options encountered patent numbers and clinical-sounding terminology. They did not encounter the Shenong Ben Chao Jing. Step 3 was marketing infrastructure. TA Sciences promoted TA65 through physician networks, anti-aging clinics, and television. A paid segment on a show called The Suzanne Show was presented to viewers as independent programming. It was not. Some of the people who appeared to endorse TA65 had received up to $4,000 in free product. None of that was disclosed. Consumers watching had no way to know the difference between a paid advertisement and an editorial segment. Step 4 was the regulatory gap. The FTC exists to police false advertising. It does not exist to promote cheap alternatives to expensive products. No government agency was funded to run a public awareness campaign about bulk astragalus root. Nobody was buying airtime for a $15 herb. The narrative defaulted to whoever paid for advertising, and the only entity paying was selling a $600 bottle. By 2010, a consumer searching for telomerase activators would have found Geron's patent, TA Sciences clinics, and a federally protected product with a physician endorsement network behind it. They would not have found a 2,000-year-old decoction herb with Health Canada's formal recognition sitting quietly in a bulk herb catalogue. In February 2018, the Federal Trade Commission filed an administrative complaint against TA Sciences and against Noel Thomas Patton personally. The FTC alleged that TA Sciences had made false or unsubstantiated claims that TA65 could reverse aging, prevent and repair DNA damage, restore aging immune systems, increase bone density, improve vision, and prevent cancer. The complaint also charged that the Suzanne show segment had been misrepresented as independent programming and that material connections to endorsers had not been disclosed. The consent order that followed barred TA Sciences and Patton personally from making unsupported health and aging reversal claims for TA65 or similar products. They were also required to monitor the advertising of anyone they licensed. Regulators stopped the claims. Nobody told you about the root, what the science actually shows. So what does the herb actually do? Not the patent, not the marketing claims the FTC struck down. The root itself. Astragalus does not contain one active compound. It contains several classes of compounds, each with different effects in the body. The root holds triterpenoid saponins, including the astragalosides and their derivative cycloastragenol, along with polysaccharides, flavonoids, amino acids, and trace minerals. These are not incidental. Each class does something distinct. Strip the root down to one molecule, and you have discarded most of what it is. Start with the polysaccharides. These are the long-chain carbohydrates found throughout the root. In cell and animal studies, astragalus polysaccharides enhance macrophage function. Macrophages are the immune cells that identify and destroy pathogens. The polysaccharides also boost cytokine production, which is how immune cells signal each other during an infection. On top of that, they reduce inflammation and show protective effects on the heart and kidneys in lab models. None of this required a patent. None of it cost $600. The polysaccharides are there in the root you can buy by the pound. Then there are the flavonoids and the amino acid fraction, which contribute antioxidant activity. The root as a whole is doing multiple things at once, across multiple body systems. That is not a weakness of the traditional medicine. That is the point of it. Now to cycloastragenol, the compound Geron patented the use of. In lab settings, cycloastragenol switches on telomerase, but that is not all it does. A 2022 study found that it also ramps up the body's own antioxidant defenses. It reduces the unstable molecules that damage cells, and it activates the cell's internal cleanup system, clearing out damaged proteins before they build up. It is not doing one thing. It is helping the cell handle stress from multiple directions at once. That is a meaningfully different thing than a single anti-aging pill. Mouse studies support the picture. When researchers gave TA65 to adult and old mice, telomerase activity increased. Short telomeres lengthened, markers of DNA damage went down, glucose tolerance improved, bone density improved, skin parameters improved, cancer incidence did not rise, and that matters because telomerase activation is normally associated with cancer risk, and cancer cells use telomerase to keep dividing indefinitely. TA65 in mice lengthened telomeres without raising overall cancer rates during the study window. That was a genuine finding. and it was also a limited one. Mouse studies do not translate directly to humans, and the study window was not long enough to make definitive safety claims. But the result was real. The human evidence is more specific and more constrained. A one-year trial enrolled 117 adults between 53 and 87 years old. All of them tested positive for cytomegalovirus, a common virus that most adults carry silently and that is known to accelerate immune aging. That is a specific population, not a general sample of older adults. The trial was randomized, double-blind, and placebo-controlled, the strongest kind of trial design. Participants received either 250 units of TA65 per day, 1,000 units per day, or a placebo. The low-dose group took 250 units daily. Their telomere length increased by an average of roughly 530 base pairs compared to baseline. The placebo group's telomeres actually shortened by about 290 base pairs. That gap is statistically significant. Telomeres genuinely lengthened. That part of the claim held up. What did not hold up was the high dose. At 1,000 units daily, the more expensive option, results did not reach statistical significance. The low dose outperformed the high dose on the primary outcome. For anyone paying $550 a bottle, that is worth sitting with. The most recent large-scale analysis came in 2025. Researchers pooled data from 8 separate trials, covering roughly 750 participants with a mean age around 63. The conclusion was that TA65 produced moderate telomere lengthening, especially in people over 60. That part replicated. But the supplement did not reliably improve physical performance. It did not meaningfully improve strength. It did not improve walking speed. It did not reduce frailty. No short-term cancer signal appeared, but long-term safety is still an open question. The lab results showed exactly what the marketing promised. The cells were getting younger. But when the researchers looked at the actual people in the study, they found a problem that the $600 price tag could not explain. TA Sciences was not selling telomere length. It was selling the reversal of aging, the repair of DNA, stronger bones, better vision, cancer prevention. None of that was backed by the evidence the company had access to. The science confirmed what regulators concluded. The claims had outrun the data by a wide margin. Through all of it, Health Canada's formal monograph for astragalus was sitting in a public database. It recognizes the herb for immune support and vitality. It acknowledges traditional Chinese medicine decoction practice at doses up to 30 grams of crude root per day. It lists standard safety cautions. No hype. No anti-aging promises, just a government agency formally recognizing a 2,000-year herb and the traditional practice built around it. That document existed alongside every TA65 advertisement that ran. Nobody put it on television. The evidence was never missing. It was just quiet. And quiet does not sell. Bulk dried astragalus root, the cut and sifted slices used in traditional decoctions, is sold by herb suppliers across the United States right now. A pound runs $10 to $35 depending on whether it carries organic or regenerative certification. At the Health Canada immune support dose of 2 to 4.8 grams per day, 1 pound covers 95 to 227 days of use. The math works out to somewhere between 5 cents and 30 cents a day. Compare that to $3 to $20 a day for TA65 at standard dosing. The herb and the patented extract come from the same plant. The price gap is not explained by efficacy. The simplest preparation method is the decoction, which is exactly what practitioners have been using for 2,000 years. Take your dried root slices and soak them in cold water for about 60 minutes. Then bring the water to a boil and let it simmer for 20 to 25 minutes. Strain the liquid and drink it. That's the whole method. Health Canada's monograph describes the same process. It notes that the same root can be decocted a second time. Add fresh water and simmer for another 15 to 20 minutes. you are getting 2 draws from the same material. Dosing ranges vary depending on your reference point. In traditional Chinese medicine practice, 9 to 30 grams of crude dried root per day is standard for a full therapeutic decoction. Western herbal sources tend to suggest a lower entry point for general tonic use, around 1 to 4 grams per day. If you are brewing it more like a tea, 6 to 12 grams in 350 to 400 milliliters of hot water is a commonly cited range. None of these figures represent official medical guidance. They represent what trained practitioners across multiple traditions have settled on over decades of use. All of them fall within the dosing ranges in Health Canada's formal monograph. If you cook, there is an even simpler entry point. Drop several dried root slices into a pot of soup or broth. Simmer for 1 to 2 hours, then discard the slices before serving. The root leaves a mild flavor in the liquid, slightly sweet and slightly earthy. It does not overpower the dish. This is how astragalus has moved through East Asian kitchens for generations. Convalescent soups, restorative congee, winter broths. It was a food as much as a medicine. The line between the two was never as rigid as the supplement industry prefers. If decoctions and cooking are not practical for you, the root is also sold in capsule and tincture form. Standard directions for powdered root capsules run 250 to 500 milligrams taken 2 to 3 times daily. For tinctures, 2 to 5 milliliters 3 times a day is a commonly referenced range. No official consensus exists on the optimal dose in these forms, so if you are working with a specific health goal, a qualified herbalist or integrative physician is worth consulting. What about cycloastragenol specifically, the compound from the Geron patent? It is sold as a generic by several supplement companies now at lower per milligram prices than TA65. But it is still considerably more expensive than bulk root, and the human clinical data remains limited. If your interest is specifically in telomere biology and you want the isolated compound, generic cycloastragenol is a cheaper option than TA65. Just understand that you are working with the same narrow evidence base that the 2025 meta-analysis assessed, which found moderate telomere lengthening, unclear functional benefit, and that long-term safety is not yet established. A few things to know before you start. Astragalus membranaceus is an immunostimulant, meaning it tends to push the immune system toward greater activity. That is the mechanism behind its traditional use for recurrent colds and fatigue. But if you have an autoimmune condition, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, or multiple sclerosis, a more active immune response is not what you want. Talk to your doctor before adding it to your routine in those cases. The same applies if you are taking immunosuppressant drugs, which are often used after organ transplants. Astragalus can work against them. Caution also applies if you are taking lithium or strong diuretics, given the herb's mild diuretic activity. Pregnant and breastfeeding individuals should avoid it or consult a physician first. These are not rare theoretical concerns. They are the standard safety cautions listed in Health Canada's monograph and in herbal safety references across North America and Europe. And on legal status, astragalus is a fully legal dietary supplement and traditional herbal medicine in North America, Europe, and most of Asia. You do not need a prescription. You do not need a physician's order. It sits in the same regulatory category as chamomile and elderberry. The only thing that made it feel inaccessible was the narrative built around the patented extract. That narrative has now been corrected by a federal consent order. The cheap version was always available. It still is. The root they couldn't patent. You now know the difference between a patented molecule and the whole plant it came from. That distinction belongs to a 2,000-year lineage no patent filing can touch. Subscribe to Grassling so you don't miss what gets uncovered next. And share this with someone who would still pay $600 for what costs 30 cents a day. The herb was never hidden. It was just waiting for someone who knew where to look.